On this episode of the Airport Economist, why Chile is fast becoming the gateway to Latin America. It's home to some of the biggest mines on the planet. How a small Australian company has dug in. Plus the Victorians dishing up new flavours to Chile. And how our scientists have saved salmon in the south. The lessons learned here in Chile to help safeguard farms back home. Welcome to Santiago, the capital of Chile. I'm Tim Harcourt, the Airport Economist, and I'm going to show you around this economic powerhouse of South America. We'll find out why leading global businesses have chosen Chile as their base for the whole Latin American region. Not so long ago, this country was ruled by a military dictatorship and had an underperforming economy despite significant copper reserves. Less than 3 decades on, Chile has undergone major political and economic transformation to become a role model for the region. Chile is known as the Jaguar economy because of its macroeconomic stability and its success in reducing poverty by half in just 15 years. So let's take a look at how Chile did it and how its vibrant economy fares on a global scale. Chile has a unique geography. It's long and thin, wedged between the Andes Mountains and the Pacific Ocean. In the north, it's desert, the middle, home to Mediterranean-like temperatures, and the capital, Santiago. Way down south, Chile almost touches Antarctica. It only has a population of 18 million, but its sizable GDP makes Chile one of the richest countries in Latin America. It's a member of the OECD, as well as APEC and the Pacific Alliance. Inflation is low at 2.3%, whilst unemployment is 7%. Chile has been successful at reducing absolute poverty, although relative poverty still is a major issue. Chile's major export partners are China, the US and Japan. It imports mainly from China, the USA and Brazil. One reason for Chile's economic success is its very pro-free trade stance. It can access 87% of the world's GDP through FTAs with more than 65 countries. That gives Chile access to 4 billion global consumers. Not bad for such a small country. I spoke with the Australian ambassador to Chile, Robert Fergusson, on Chile's role in the world trading system.
Chile has 26 FTAs with 68 different economies, and they've been committed to free trade for a very long time. And what's particularly important in Chile is that commitment to trade liberalisation and free trade is on both sides of politics. Think like Australia. They recognise their economy is too small to be able to grow without exporting.
What types of opportunities are there in the Chilean economy for foreign businesses, including Australian ones?
Well, obviously mining for Australia remains front and centre, and I'm very keen as Australia's ambassador here to see that mining relationship strengthen and deepen. But what I'd like to emphasise, and I mentioned this to the 230 companies that are here and all the other companies that are interested in coming, there's a lot of opportunities outside mining as well. So we're looking at how we can really expand our cooperation with Chile in education, in health, in agriculture, in infrastructure, and the list goes on.
Chile was for so long the front runner in Latin America. So why would it join the Pacific Alliance?
Chile already has free trade agreements with all other Pacific Alliance members. But if you talk to the Chilean government, you get a sense of their broader view. And what they see the Pacific Alliance as is a mechanism to pull and encourage a whole range of economies to be more ambitious. So there's what's going on here in Latin America to increase the level of ambition in economic reform, in trade liberalisation. But more importantly, and particularly for us, as we negotiate an FTA with the Pacific Alliance serves as a bloc which then engage with Asia and engage with the Pacific, Asia-Pacific more broadly. So from Chile's perspective, although it does have individual FTAs, it provides a very useful mechanism to bring along the whole group.
Has joining the OECD been good for Chile, or does it signal that it's left Latin America behind?
Look, I don't see it that way. I see Chile joining the OECD as a demonstration or as a benchmark for the level of its economic development and where it wants to go economically. But don't forget, as we've been talking, Chile really is a leader. It's one of the best performing economies in Latin America. So being an OECD member is an opportunity for them to pull along the rest of Latin America.
So which Australian companies do well in Chile, and what Chilean companies have a presence in Australia?
There's obviously BHP, which has a huge presence in here, and Chile is a massively important part for its global operations. But outside of that, there are also other companies, and one of my favourites is Orica because of what it's doing here in Chile. It's being very ambitious with its reforms inside, with its gender policies, but also it is very much an example of a company that's using Chile as a base to go out into other areas of Latin America. On the flip side, I'd love to get more Chilean investment in Australia, but there's two ones that stand out. And the first is Conimet Duratrade, which first invested in Australia 18 years ago. They work well here and in Australia as well. They support a lot of what we do, and it's a real long-term commitment for working together with a country that's very similar to Chile.
So the state governments also have offices here. Is that for Chile itself, or is it a Latin America strategy?
Both, I'd say. We've got the Queensland state government here and the Victorian state government here. They are both very, very active and wonderful players here in Chile and in Latin America. They're looking very much at the opportunities in Chile. They've based themselves here in Chile for the obvious reasons we mentioned. It's one of the fastest growing economies in Latin America, political stability, economic stability. But they're also looking to use Chile as a base to expand operations outside Chile in other countries in Latin America.
Still to come, how a small Australian company has helped transform the Latin American mining sector. Expo Min is one of the world's biggest mining conferences held here in Santiago. This year, there's a big contingent from Australia who've tapped into the Latin American mining sector. I spoke to Victoria's Trade and Investment Commissioner, Natalia Gorrono, about the importance of Chile to their economy. Well, LATAM Airlines now flies straight from Melbourne to Santiago. So do you regard Chile as the gateway to Latin America?
In certain ways it is, and actually as a Victorian government we're extremely proud about that link. We played a pivotal role in securing that flight, and yes, we do believe that it does open Latin America up as the gateway. So we see that on one side it builds deeper people-to-people links, it promotes tourism, it helps students get across. That builds more relationships, and that in helps trade and investment as well. So it is a really good launching pad from which to land here and do business elsewhere.
So what about the other way? Is Melbourne regarded as a gateway to Asia or Australia?
There were already a lot of passengers travelling to Melbourne, and Melbourne is a great gateway to Asia because we have the only 24-hour non-stop airport operating there. It's curfew-free. So if you're coming in from Latin America, it's easy to connect with airlines from all over the world. There's over 30 airlines flying into Melbourne. We do see more Latin Americans taking interest in Melbourne, many of them seeing it as a great place to set up business.
How are Victorian food and beverage exporters represented here in Chile?
There's an increase of Australian food and beverage, and amongst those there's our products. And I think it's a very interesting opportunity for us. Chile recently implemented the most strict food labelling laws in the world. Any food product that has over a certain amount of calories, of sugars, of saturated fats or of salt has to have a big black stop sign on it. And that's an effort to help consumers make healthy choices. So when that was implemented, we found a lot of the big retailers and distributors looking for products in Australia. And Melbourne has a fantastic offering in that sense. The major retailers in Chile have operations all around the rest of Latin America as well. So once you're in a Jumbo supermarket here, there's a good opportunity that you could get into a Jumbo in Peru or in Colombia.
So Chile's pretty unique with desert up the top and a lot of water down the bottom. What opportunities does that bring for water management, and how has that helped Victoria?
Water is unevenly distributed across the country. There's the driest desert in the world up north, and down in the south we have the Patagonian ice fields and beautiful amounts of fresh water. But our main industries and population are located in the centre and in the north of Chile, which is drought-stricken and where people are competing, or industries are competing for water. So there is an opportunity there in water management, but the first issue that needs to be sorted out is frameworks for water management. And in that sense, there has been an opportunity for Victoria. We've been sharing a lot of knowledge. We've flown over a lot of our scholars, a lot of our water experts to share their knowledge. We constantly welcome Chilean delegations, and we'll continue to do so, into Victoria to come and learn how we coped with managing water and drought. So we're doing that on one side. And there's opportunities for us as well with our services and technology. So we have companies like Rubicon Water who do telemetry and do a fantastic job measuring water. And they're working on some interesting projects here. I think there's a lot more potential on that front and on everything that has to do with managing water efficiently. So I do think that there are many more opportunities for us in future.
Coming up, the Australian discovery in Chile, which could help safeguard the world salmon industry. So let's find out how easy it is to tap into the mining sector here in Latin America. Duratray is a Chilean-Australian business that's done just that. It's a global supplier of tray bodies for mining and quarry haul trucks. I caught up with the Chief Executive, Manuel Medel. So where are your operations around the world?
Yeah, well, in terms of our main offices, the main offices are in Melbourne, Victoria, since day one in Australia, actually. When we arrived to Australia in 2001, Victoria was our headquarters, and from Victoria, we started the export process to all the continents around the world. We have implemented offices in the United States, in Canada, and we just opened our branches in Russia and South Africa.
So what's it like for a Chilean company doing business in Australia?
Very different. I mean, the business culture and the labor culture in Australia is very different to Chile. Especially when it comes to the relationship between the companies and employees. In Australia, we face a more direct relationship, also with a labor force that it's more independent and more sophisticated, which at the beginning was a big difference to us. Also leading with, especially in Victoria, with the union culture there. But then we realized that was a positive thing. Some companies in Chile tend to take it as a negative situation, but we learned in Australia that having a formal and organized good relationship with workers is something very positive for productivity and expansion of the company.
You do business in both Latin America and Australia and Asia. How do they compare?
We have learned that there is not a recipe to do business in different cultures. Probably the only one we need to be very careful is about understanding that there are different codes of behavior of everyone, especially below every personality and every country culture. And we have learned to listen a lot. We have learned to be very respectful and get involved with the people first, and then from that move on to do business with them.
Do you think that Australian companies have lifted safety standards in Chile?
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, I can tell you the experience in BHP Billiton when at that time BHP back in 1986, 87, when for the first time was passed the law, the mining law in Chile, to allow private investment to come to Chile. The first investment was actually BHP Billiton with the project Escondido, that later on became the most important copper operation in the world. At that time when BHP arrived, the standards of safety were much higher with our legislation standards. So we learned from an Australian company to have all type of restrictions and a safety standard that were way over our legislation, actually. And then our law started changing, trying to catch up with that process.
What advice would you give Chilean companies going into Australia?
I would totally recommend to do business in Australia for many reasons. I think at the beginning, or some time ago, when people will speak about Australia, people will have the impression that going to Australia was like going to Jupiter. I mean, it was a distance, a big distance. Australia became very familiar to our countries. A lot of students going to Australia. There's so many former students that they want to go back and do business with them, and suddenly these 15,000 kilometers get very close.
Still to come, the Australian business spicing up Chile's supermarkets. But first, whilst mining has been the mainstay of the Chilean economy, the focus these days is on innovation right across the economy. This has opened up opportunities for Australia's Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation. The CSIRO is involved in projects right across Latin America. I spoke to the CEO of CSIRO Chile, Dr. Orlando Jimenez. Like Australia, you're concerned with water management and drought. How have you brought that knowledge to Chile?
You know, Australia goes from sort of droughts to issues with extreme and rapid rainfall, and Chile is not that different. What Chile has been doing is pretty much deal with drought management by bringing everybody together. What we bring to the table is knowledge and science. Sometimes we have different users of a resource like water. Everybody has their own view, and therefore it's not that easy to bring the facts to the table and agree on a strategy forward. So this is when we come into the game, which is about how science allows you to understand what the issues are, and then you open a conversation across industries, with the government, with research partners, to get the facts right, and then put together a strategy.
Fisheries are very important to Chile. How has CSIRO Chile got involved with that sector?
Effectively, what you see in Chile is that the salmon industry is a world-class industry. So if you look at that industry globally, you find a handful of really top-notch players. We're talking about Scotland, Canada, Norway, and Chile is one of them. Chile is the second world producer on salmon. However, the country hasn't been able to cope with a number of areas, particularly disease control. And it's affecting what actually the companies earn and the profits they make. So we, based on capabilities we developed in Australia in the fisheries space, we adapted to the salmon farming industry. What is interesting now is that we have come up with a solution that, based on data analytics and mathematical modeling, we're actually able to bring significant amounts of data to understand what is actually behind of the disease issues, the environmental impact. And then we are given tools, very concrete tools, to industry, to government, to make decisions with a clear vision on what the issues are and the problems are. The beauty of that as well is that now the lessons we are learning are going to be transferred back to Australia.
So it's a boomerang effect.
Exactly, and that's the beauty. When you are in a global world, you somehow need to take advantage of geography or the issues of other face that you potentially face as well.
Do you think you could replicate the CSIRO Chile model elsewhere in the world?
I'm convinced. Globalized is about talent. It's a talent-driven process. And innovation is also a talent-driven process. And then when you mix the need to find those new challenges with talent, that is everywhere.
I'm here at Jumbo, a popular supermarket across Latin America. Here you'll find a variety of international produce on the shelves from the US and popular Australian products too, like Bega cheese and Passage simmer sauces. These Passage products have been cooked up in Victoria for years, but were only exported to Chile about 18 months ago. So let's talk to the man behind the export deal, Simon Bartram from Flavour Makers. So what's your philosophy in terms of food quality?
Well, because we deal with all the major supermarkets and quick service restaurants in Australia and around the world, we have quite a significant staff of Michelin star chefs and R&D and technologists that work to make sure our products are perfect from start to finish. So quality, gluten, all of our claims. So we're highly audited by all of our customers.
Which countries do you export to?
We call ourselves global simply because we're in New Zealand, Australia, America, South America, Canada, UK, Ireland, Finland, and soon to be much more of Europe.
So how did you expand overseas?
Well, we've invested a lot in going into trade shows, so in Germany and France. We got serious 2 years ago in Seattle, Paris, and that's how we ended up in South America. So simply the team from Jumbo were over in Paris and they proactively seek out brands that are recognised in different parts of the world and saw that our products stood out.
Do you think Chile is a good place to start?
Definitely, and the meetings that I've had within Peru and Colombia and speaking with the Brazilians and Argentinians, they definitely keep their eye on what's happening in Chile as their forecast for the flavours to come or for products to take into their part of the world.
Who assisted you in distribution?
So we've had some dealings with the Victorian government. They're very proactive in supporting businesses like ours to further trade into Latin America.
Do you think Chile is too small? Are you using it as a stepping stone?
So that's where we thought originally, that a population of 17 million, when you crunch down to how many people would be into a product that we supply, then it may be something that they would only trial for 6 months and then we wouldn't see them again. But when I went to see them, it was the opposite. So they saw this as a very long-term opportunity. So the growth has actually been in the near 18 months that we've been on the shelves with them, they've taken the equivalent of a container of product every 3 months. So it's been very surprising for us and very rewarding for them.
Would you say Chile is an easy place to do business?
I believe so. If they are proactively looking for your product, they definitely work very hard and make sure that they're in it for the long game. So once they're on board, they are definitely proactive about managing and working together.
So what about actually getting here? LATAM Airlines is the main carrier for the region and is the result of a recent merger of two well-known companies, LAN of Chile and TAM of Brazil. To find out the best way to navigate Chile, let's catch up with one of the airline's senior executives. So why is LATAM the best way to travel from Australia to Latin America?
Well, LATAM has consolidated itself as a leading airline within the region, and we like to say we are the best alternative to get from to and within South America. We believe we have an unrivaled network. We fly to 140 destinations within South America. We serve 6 countries, 140 cities, and so we have 1,200 flights per day. We serve 67 million passengers a year. So that allows us to say we're big enough to offer a particularly good service to worldwide.
How important is the Sydney to Santiago route as a gateway to Latin America?
LATAM has been flying the Sydney route for more than 10 years, and Sydney allows us to understand the Oceania market and how to do business between South America and Oceania. We fly with a stop in Auckland daily. We partner with Qantas to get daily 4 times a week to Santiago, and then we have 3, and now currently just updated to 5 frequencies per week to Santiago from Melbourne. And that has allowed us to understand how to compete and how to keep on growing in this market.
So is your business mainly corporates, students, or leisure travellers?
It's a nice mixture, and what we have seen is that all of the segments, corporate, studies, leisure, has ramped up very well when you put the capacity there. So we're very glad to say it's a very good mixture, not only in segments, but also it's more or less half and half what's coming from South America and what we are taking from Australia and Oceania to South America as well.
Why do international business travellers use Santiago as a hub for the whole region?
Well, Santiago has become a very important business center for now a lot of years. And so a lot of, for example, Australian companies have established their headquarters in South America, in Chile. So it makes it easier for them to go there and have all the meetings. And they use it. We have such a nice hub in Santiago, which will connect you not only to main capitals in South America, but also to secondary cities. So it allows you to travel everywhere in a very smooth way.
Chile is one of the easiest countries in Latin America to do business in and has a very internationally minded business community with a Pacific focus. But there are still some cultural nuances to look out for. So let's talk to the Hyatt Place in Santiago. So Fiona, welcome to the show.
Well, welcome to Santiago.
So if you're in Chile doing business, what do you typically do? Do you invite people out for dinner or for lunch?
Normally, people do business after of the office, so we go out for dinner. And also, we like to invite people to our homes. And then for business lunch or doing business, we're very on time. But if you go out for dinner as a friend, we are very not on time. If we invite you at 9 o'clock, normally it starts at 9:30.
So on time and punctual for business, but socially you can be a bit more relaxed.
Yes, yes.
And what do you talk about in terms of conversation?
Well, it's a mix about the business and then you talk about your personal life. Yes, we are very friendly. We kiss people. I don't know, in Europe or in Australia, people shake the hands now to say hello. In Chile, we kiss.
So just the one kiss on the cheek?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to getting around Santiago, what should I take? A taxi, Uber, the subway?
People prefer to take Uber, yes, yes. But it's a very safe city, so if you want to take a cab, it's no problem, you can, yes.
And what about the subway system in Santiago?
I think we have the most modern subway in Latin America.
Chile's on an international fault line, very prone to earthquakes. Is that something people should worry about?
For us now, the earthquakes are quite normal, so We say, if you see running us, you have to be careful. If you don't, just stay where you are.
So what would be your top tips for someone doing business in Chile?
So you have to be on time for the business meeting. You don't talk about religion and politics, and then you have to be calm when you are in an earthquake.
So what are some useful Chilean Spanish phrases?
Al tiro is something when you are going to do something right now, it's al tiro. And then when you say goodbye, you say ciao. It's quite different from the Italian. They say ciao for hello, we say ciao for goodbye.
So what did we learn from our visit to Chile? Many business people here speak English, but try and learn some Spanish phrases to get around, particularly outside Santiago. Don't talk too much about the dictatorship, unless it's raised with you. Many Chileans lived in exile between 1973 and 1990. Chile is one of the easiest places in the world to do business with excellent government agencies, pro-Chile and Invest Chile, to help you on your way. Many businesses from Australia, Canada, the US and Europe use Santiago as a base for their Latin American operations, so consider this as an option. And finally, pack your surfboard for summer and your skis for winter, and you'll have access to those fabulous Chilean wines and seafood all year round. Well, that's it for this red-hot Chile edition of the Airport Economist. See you on our next business adventure together somewhere around this great globe. I'm Tim Harcourt, and I'm the Airport Economist. Welcome to Lima. What are the opportunities now in the Peruvian economy?
Peru has the best cuisine in Latin America, and it has driven a mini boom in tourism.
This is our campaign to promote the Peruvian superfoods around the world.